Okay, here is the scenic route of your study guide. So again, if you wanted the shortcut, you could have just clicked on the PDF, but we're going to work through each of these problems. So the first one, you have to just factor out the GCF. So right here, I would say my GCF is, and I know that 6 can go into each of those terms, and also x, because I have this x here. That's the lowest degree. So I'm going to take this 6x, and then I'm going to reverse distribute, and I'm going to get 6x times what gives me 12x squared? Well, that would be 2x. 6x times what gives me 18x? That would be plus 3. And 6x times what gives me negative 24x squared? That would be negative 4x to the third. And then you stop. There's nothing else you can do with that factoring. Same thing for this one. I'm going to look at the coefficients. These don't have a common factor, so then I'm going to look at the variables. I'm going to say, well, x squared is my lowest x term, and then y is my lowest y term. So my GCF here is just x squared y. So I'm going to have 5x squared y squared to get 5x to the fourth, y to the third. This is a 2. Plus 4x, and I don't even need to put a y there because it's already part of that, minus 3y, because x squared y times 3y will give me negative 3x squared y squared. There we go. That one's done. Again, you can't do anything else with that. You would need quadratics for that, and we're not there yet. All right, these next two we're going to factor without the AC method. So that's just simply what times what equals C, and what plus what equals 15. So my answer here would be 12 and 3, 12 and 3, because 12 times 3 is 36, 12 plus 3 is 15. So my answer is going to be x plus 12 times x plus 3. And I'm done. We did number 4 together in class. Remember, this is the same, except it just doesn't have a middle term. So I have what times what gives me negative 64. What plus what gives me 0, because I need that middle term to cancel out. And this is where we all agreed on 8 and negative 8. So we get x minus 8 times x plus 8. And that one should be done on your paper. Okay, and now the favorite, the AC method. So I don't have a common factor, so I just have to start out with the negative 5 times 8, and I get negative 40. So then I'm going to ask myself what times what gives me that negative 40 that I just created, and then what plus what gives me that negative 18. That is still my b value. So I'm going to get negative 20 and 2 as my combination. So I have x minus 20 times x plus 2. This is where I sneak that a back into both quantities, so negative 5x minus 20 times negative 5x plus 2. This one can have a greatest common factor. I'm going to take out the negative 5. That's going to be times x plus 4 times the negative 5x plus 2. Divide by the negative 5a value that I started with. And if you weren't sure if you should take out a negative value, go back up and look at your a. If this is negative 5, you're going to want to take out a negative 5 so that they cancel. So then your final answer is x plus 4 times negative 5x plus 2. All right, and then we'll do number 6, same thing. I don't have a common factor. I have to do AC method because there's this 7 here. 7 times 5 equals 35. So what times what gives me that 35? What plus what gives me negative 12? So I can do negative 7 and negative 5. Negative times a negative gives a positive. Negative 7, negative 5 combined makes negative 12. X minus 7 times x minus 5. I sneak this a back in, so I get 7x minus 7 times 7x minus 5. Of course, this one has the greatest common factor. 7 times the quantity x minus 7 times 7x minus 5. Divide by that a value. And now I have my final answer. X minus 7 times 7x minus 5. Okay, so that is the front page, and then we'll go on to the back. All right, these number 7 and 8 are probably the hardest ones because you have a GCF, and then you have to decide, do you need to use the AC method or not. So let's look here at this first polynomial. Our GCF is going to be 5. So I'm going to take that 5 out, reverse distribute, so 5 times x squared gives me 5x squared. 5 times 16x will give me 80x. And 5 times 64 will give me the 320. So now I'm going to ignore this 5. I'm going to look here and see that there's no value in front of this x, so I can just cut right to the x times what gives me that 64. What plus what gives me that 16. Hopefully you can see that they are both 8 because they're positives. So my quantities are x plus 8 times x plus 8, and then I bring down that 5 that I factored out, and that's my answer. Some of you might be thinking, well, if these are the same thing, is there anything else I could write here? Sure could. You could say 5 times the quantity x plus 8 squared, because then if I were to stretch it out, I would get x plus 8 times x plus 8. Either one is fine for your quiz. I mean, I don't anticipate many of you adapting to this, but it's still something nice to know. All right, number 8, my greatest common factor here, and I know some of us struggled with this yesterday, is 3, and then if you look here, I have an x squared that can go into each of these. So my greatest common factor is 3x squared. So I'm going to do 3x squared times what will give me 6x to the 4th? Well, that's 2x squared. Times what will give me negative 15x to the 3rd, so times negative 5x. And then times what will give me negative 9x squared minus 3. So then I'm going to ignore this. I'll re-put it with the answer at the end. And of course now I know I have to do AC method because I have a 2 here. So 2 times negative 3 gives me negative 6. So what times what equals negative 6? What plus what equals that negative 5 there? So negative 6 and 1, negative 6 and 1. So now I have x minus 6 times x plus 1. I have to sneak that 2 back in from my a, because remember I'm ignoring this greatest common factor. So I've got 2x minus 6 times 2x plus 1. This first one can be factored out. I can do 2 times the quantity x minus 3 times 2x plus 1. Obviously then I would divide by that a. So now I'm left with very little space, x minus 3 times 2x plus 1, and then I have to remember to bring this GCF back around. So I get 3x squared times those two quantities. And there's my final answer. All right, and the last two, which I know are everybody's favorites, are grouping. So I'm just going to group these out. I'm going to take the greatest common factor here is going to be 2x squared, and then I would multiply that times 2x plus 3. And then remember, I need this other one to match, right? So in order to get 2x plus 3 over here, I actually have to take out a negative 5, and that'll give me 2x plus 3 to create that part of the group. So then I combine these, and I get 2x squared minus 5 times the 2x plus 3. Remember, we only bring that down once. And there's my answer for number 9. Then the last one, got to do my grouping. My greatest common factor here is going to be 3x squared. That's going to be times 2x plus 1. My greatest common factor here is going to be 4 times 2x plus 1. Those match, so I'm good. Combine these to get 3x squared plus 4 times the quantity 2x plus 1. So there you have it. There's your answers. Remember, they're definitely, if you go in the order on the jam, starting around, what was that, April 12th, you can see how we would have done all of those in the same order. Okay, email me if you have any questions. The quiz is tomorrow. Of course, you can always just go back and look at the PDF if you want as well. All right, see you guys then.